Baria Alamuddin in London. Plenty of issues being thrown up there, but do you think it's possible to say that it's one thing more than the other? For example, is it the autocratic regimes in some of the Arab nations which are to blame, or is it being fueled more and more by the US war on terror? How do you come down on this?
Well, I think there is no denial that the regimes, the way they are in the region is not a plus for us all. Although I must admit, we are in a sort of a vicious circle. This report is indeed very, very sad news for us all. And I think what we need to do in the area is wage a war on ignorance. What we need in the area is empowerment of women, of people. What we need in the area above all, I believe, is peace. People in the area don't have the luxury of thinking about education or about aspirations for jobs or for development as such. People are always going on from one war to another and by no means defending the systems or the governments. Something radical has to be done about our educational system, about our universities. I think you mentioned in the report that our students cannot anymore go to the United States. I think that's an over-exaggeration. There are a number of students, and I would say in the thousands, that still go to the United States, come to England, and go to France and other parts of the world.
Yeah, I think
but that's not the issue, because we do have...
the numbers had actually fallen. But let me bring Amy Hawthorne into the discussion as well. Amy, if ordinary Arabs are given a greater stake economically and there is a lot more political freedom, the issue of militancy, would that just simply wither away and die?
I think it would wither away to a certain extent, but we need to keep in mind that the phenomenon of radicalism, extremism, and terrorism is very, very complex, and it's fueled by a lot of different factors, as Shafiq pointed out a few minutes ago. And it is not directly caused by the lack of democracy in the Arab world. I think we should expect that there may be, for some time, a radical fringe of people who believe in these extremist ideologies and want to use violence to achieve their goals. The goal of all of us who are concerned about these issues should be to try to make that group as small as possible. But I think to expect that a process of democratization would immediately dry up the swamp, as American officials are fond of saying, is unrealistic.
All right, Baria, what are your thoughts on that? I think you want to weigh in on some of the comments that Amy has made there.
Yeah, well, I must agree. I agree with both speakers on lots of the issues, and I do agree that democracy is not the main issue in the Arab world, because I don't believe it is because of the lack of knowledge, because of the lack of education, because there are so many other important issues, and that's why I said we're going in a vicious circle. Today I was attending a conference, the Arab International Women's Forum, and I was so pleased to hear so many of the women speakers, not only from the Arab world, but also from the United States of America, speaking of the advancement of and the empowerment of women. But still, this is a very small minority. For example, I could not believe that 51% of the people, of the graduates in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are women, that these women constitute 75% of people who have deposited money, and that money is about 10 billion pounds. I mean, these are fantastic figures, but this unfortunately does not apply to the majority of the Arab world.
Okay.
The figures that speak, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There were lots of issues that were raised at that conference in London. But Shafiq, your thoughts on whether you think then, I mean, given the kind of debate that we're having, that militancy, that fundamentalism is on the decline then?
Well, I think the question for the Arab world is a question of reform, is a question of modernizing political structures, modernizing the economies. There are many incipient aspects of this. You'll find much of this going on in some of the smaller Arab states, but not yet the main and more numerous, larger Arab states.
What is the threat, Shafiq? Why don't? What is the threat, though? Why don't Arab leaders engage their population in that way? Why isn't there pluralism and political parties and so on?
You see, in smaller states, it's easier, probably. The tradition is lighter when it comes to these issues. Monarchies find it even sometimes much more easier to handle issues of reform, particularly when states and populations are smaller and there is an element of wealth around. It's harder for the larger states, given the state of thinking of the Arab world in the last 30, 40 years, whether it was a monarchic way of thinking or an Arab nationalist way of thinking. It ended up building huge governments that believed it can stay on and on and on, and there was no need for addressing these issues. Now there is a need. It is an issue. It is an issue that has to do with the wider market in the world, with the information technology, the way the world is being structured. And September 11 definitely highlights these issues. So it is today an issue, and I would say this report is targeting the Arab people. It is targeting the Arab world, and in particular the Arab intellectuals and policymakers, and it must create a debate, and it should be seen within that context.
All right, well, I'm sure it is creating a debate. Shafiq Gabra, Amy Hawthorne, and Baria Alamuddin, many thanks to all of you for joining us on Q&A.